Good evening. Hello, everyone. Depending on where you are, it might be afternoon or morning, but hello, regardless. Welcome. Starting a few minutes early, just making sure everything is fine and good to go. We are going to go through the Olivet Discourse, Matthew 24 and 25. I don't know who is aware or not that Matthew 25 is part of the Olivet Discourse, and much of what is explained in Matthew 25 is also spoken of in Matthew 24, both concepts. As we get into this, I will wait until it's time and more people are here to really start explaining this. But yes, Matthew 24 and 25 are both part of the Olivet Discourse. So that's what we're going to go through tonight. I anticipate being here for a little while because there are some questions that were brought up ahead of time that I do want to go through, and then I obviously want to field all of the questions that might come up during the course of this live stream. So hopefully you've got time to, if you're here during this, to spend with us. And if you're watching this after the fact, then thank you very much for your time and attention. And if you have questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below this video. So I'm just going to give this a few minutes to allow people to come on in and get settled in, and then we'll get started. It's a few minutes to 6 o'clock right now, 6 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday, and I know this probably isn't a great time for a lot of people, but it worked for me. So, and this is something that I want to go through. I'm looking forward to going through. There's a lot to go through. So hopefully, if you have any questions, they'll be answered. But if not, like I said, feel free to bring them up, and I will do my best to answer them. Hi, Tracy. Welcome. Great to see you. Looks like we've got a few people with us, so hello to everybody who may be in chat or may not be. But I'm always, as always, very glad to have you guys with me. It's a lot more fun to go through this stuff when there's people here, although it doesn't really matter because I guess people can watch after the fact too. So, as long as who wants to see it gets to see it in any way that may occur, then all is well. So, let's see. I'm probably going to get started right at 6 because I have a lot to go through. It may go faster than I think, and it may not. I have videos about Matthew 24 and 25, but essentially I was just reading through what I had already written regarding these topics. So I figured it would be good to replace those videos with not just reading something, and then allowing people to comment. And also, as we study the Bible, we learn more things and we can tie more things together. So that is also what I will be doing tonight. A lot of probably what I'll be going through was not in the other videos that I did because it's research I've done since that I've come across. And it becomes a lot easier to tie some of the other verses that are especially in the Old Testament to this discourse. So some of the prophetic events that will coincide and perhaps better explain what's going to be going on during this specific time period that's in view, because the Olivet Discourse is a very specific time in view. So just give it a couple more minutes and we'll get started. Hey Norma, welcome. Nice to see you. Lisa, if you're here, nice to see you. I'm sorry I don't say hi as often as I should, but if you're here, welcome. Make sure I don't miss any questions. I know that I was presented with a few, and if I do not answer them during the course of this, which I know one I will for sure, the others I'm not sure that I will, but I will certainly answer them afterward. And maybe I'll read them. I just had to restart my phone because it wasn't loading what I wanted to look at, right? So I'll read the questions ahead of time to just kind of give you guys a heads up of what, if I don't cover, I will be addressing at the end, so that those of you who may not have time to listen in, for those who are watching after the fact, just so they know some of at least what I'll be going through. And welcome, nice to see you. This has got to be one of the most highly debated chapters. Is my stream okay? I just saw that it froze up a little bit. It was probably doing the buffering thing on you guys' end. Gonna watch it for another minute because I don't want to have to restart it after I've already gotten started. Okay, it's got a red button for the streaming, and when it goes orange, it probably is when it starts to buffer, and I don't know. I just happened to glance up and see that that was the case. So hopefully we're fine. Just let me know if it becomes an issue, because when that happens, the video cuts out and I'm talking, but it doesn't hear me. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, but just to kind of give you guys a bit of a preview, these were some of the questions that were brought up beforehand. And so I will, if I don't address these during the course of going through this, I will address them afterwards. The first one was, here's the stumper that people have the most difficulty with, and if you can find a better way to break this down, I'd sure appreciate it. Matthew 24:38. Noah is a type of Israel, but the problem is that people don't understand how it can be eating, drinking, and giving in marriage. In other words, business as usual during the time of the 70th week. I will certainly address that, because that, if you go to one specific point in Scripture, it becomes easier to understand, even if we still don't understand really how it's going to happen, because we just don't know exactly how things are going to go, just have the framework of the 70th week. It at least shows you that that's what will be going on. So I will take you there. Question 2, how could the second coming come as a surprise when people can just use a simple day count out of Daniel to already know when the second coming should occur? I will certainly go through that, because yes, that is much misunderstood. So we'll hopefully clear some of that up. And then the other one has to do about all Israel being saved. So I will get to that also, although that's not perhaps as directly related. But those are some of the things that I will go through afterwards if I do not get to them throughout the course of this video. So hi everyone, welcome. Susanna, if I didn't say hi. Kind of doing two things at once, so I don't know if I did or not, but if I did, hi twice. First of all, thank you to everybody for being here. And like I said, if at any time during this you have questions, let me know. I may not stop what I'm doing to answer them, but I will answer them regardless when I get to a point where I can stop and not kind of be in the middle of a thought. So please don't hesitate to let me know. I want to make sure that I get as many questions answered as possible. I am probably going to say some things that people might not have heard before, or that people disagree with just because they have some ideas already in their heads about what this stuff means. That's okay. That's okay, because if I do nothing else, then I give you something else to consider, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Before we actually start with Matthew 24, I kind of need to set the stage up for where Jesus actually starts with this discourse. And it actually starts, the first two verses of Matthew 24 are not specifically from the Mount of Olives. They are after he leaves Jerusalem and the temple. He tells something to the disciples, to his apostles, that they just don't understand. He was in Jerusalem specifically talking to the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And chapter 23 is a whole bunch of woes being pronounced upon the religious leaders of Israel. The very last thing that he says is basically a bracket for the beginning of the Olivet Discourse. The first two verses regard the temple, and then the last verse in chapter 23 is after all of the events of the discourse have been complete. This is when it'll happen. So I'm just going to read those so it'll make more sense. But in Matthew 23:37, he says, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chicks under her wings, and ye would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate, talking about the temple. And this is where he leaves it off. He's not going to come back at the second coming until this happens. For I say unto you, ye shall not see me henceforth, till ye shall say, Blessed is he who cometh, or that cometh, in the name of the Lord. So until they recognize their Messiah and call upon him to precipitate his return, there will not be a return. There will not be a second coming. And so when we get into Matthew 24, this is what the disciples are asking about. Okay, so obviously they know now he's going to return. How are they going to know when that's going to happen? What are going to be the signs that they can prepare for, that they can use to see, to know that his coming is near or close, or that it's about to happen? Nothing to do with the rapture, and everything to do with the second coming, the physical return of Jesus Christ to earth. I'll say that right off the bat, because when you understand that, it's going to make reading through this a whole lot easier to put the things into context. If you are battling about what time period is in view or what people group is in view, then you're going to attribute some of these signs and to places or periods of time that they don't belong to, or people groups that they don't belong to. You're going to make things more generalized instead of specific. And these things in this discourse are very, very specific. In fact, Jesus takes them through a very specific time period from beginning to end, middle, everything. And if you don't understand that, if you're trying to make it about the church rather than about the Jews and the second coming, then you're going to think that some of this stuff's going on now when it's quite frankly not, and it won't until we're gone, pre-trib rapture and all. Because every single bit of this is very, very context specific, and it regards one specific period of time. A period of time that you and I are never going to see. So we get to Matthew 24:1. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple. Again, that goes back to him leaving the religious leaders where they were after telling them that their house would be left to them desolate, their temple would be destroyed, and that they weren't going to see him again until they recognized, or the people in the last generation recognized that Jesus is the Messiah. Call upon him and ask for him to save them, and then he will. So he's saying that's not going to happen until you guys wise up. Until you start believing what I'm telling you, because right now you don't, and woe to you for it. So he went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. Well, he had just got done saying that all of the buildings of the temple complex were going to be completely laid waste. And so they came out with him, alongside him, and basically said, looking up at this wonderful, majestic, awesome complex where it was the focal point of everything, and it was beautiful. And they're saying, look at this. Verse 2 says, And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all of these things, these wonderful things that basically center point, or are a center point for their entire religion. See ye not all these things. Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Well, because it can be pretty, but if they don't recognize the purpose that it served, which was to point to their Messiah. The temple on earth was a pattern of what was in heaven. The law that they gave pointed to the Messiah, to Jesus Christ, who was the fulfillment of the law. To the high priest, change of the priesthood. He was the intercessor. All of that stuff pointed to him. And so they're basically paying homage to the prettiness of what they're, what's in their line of sight, rather than everyone in Israel understanding what that was all pointing to this person who was standing with them. And he's saying because they don't recognize what all of this truly means, it's all going to be laid waste. It doesn't matter how nice it looked or how wonderful it is or all their religious systems, because not one part of that could save them. Only he could. And they were failing to recognize that. So even as caught up in that part of the beauty of it that his disciples were, he plainly told them, yeah, well, it's not always going to look like that. And in the 70 AD, when Jerusalem was sacked and the temple was destroyed, that was the fulfillment of that prophecy. And that's part of the reason why the Western Wall and the Temple Mount is not probably the correct location for all of that. Because he plainly says, not one stone will be left upon another. Well, the whole Western Wall is one stone upon another. So it's obviously not the correct location for where their temple was, because if it was, nothing would be left of it. And that's another discussion for another day. But that's what all of that related to. So then we get into the Olivet Discourse in verse 3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us what shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world, the end of the age when he would physically return to earth to do exactly what he alluded to in Matthew 23:39. For I say unto you, you shall not see me henceforth till ye shall say, Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. That's a physical return to earth, the kingdom age. The gospel of the kingdom is what he had been proclaiming, the kingdom age. Well, that was all put on hold when the Jews rejected him. The church age was born, and the Gentiles were able to be grafted into the new covenant. The kingdom age was put on hold. They're asking him, what will be the signs that tell us that the kingdom age is upon us, and when you actually physically come to return to set up your kingdom? That's what they're asking about. Now, just to diverge a little bit, he's about to tell them. We know all of the things that he's about to tell them about what's going to be the lead up to and the events that they're specifically asking about. The signs of thy coming, second coming, and the end of the age. The end of this age, which will result in his return. The next age will be the kingdom age, the millennial kingdom. So this actually, on the surface, seems to be a bit at odds with Acts 1, 6, and 7, which was right before he ascended, 40 days after the Feast of First Fruits, after he rose from the grave, he ascended. So they're asking him, what are going to be the signs of thy coming and of the end of the age? And then, again, these next chapters, this chapter and the next, will tell us about what those signs are. But in Acts 1, 6, and 7, when they therefore were come together, they asked of him, saying, Lord, wilt thou at this time restore the kingdom to Israel? Again, that's what they're looking for, is the restoration of the kingdom to Israel, the kingdom age. And he said unto them, It is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father has put in his own power. So they ask in Matthew 24, what are going to be the signs of the coming and the end of the age? And he tells them. And then in Acts 1, he says, it's not for you to know the times and the seasons which the Father has put in his own power. Those two things seem to be at odds with one another. What Acts 1 is actually saying is, it is not for you to know. Know means to experience firsthand. That he's basically telling them that when the kingdom is restored to Israel, it will not be during their natural lifetimes. That's what Acts 1, 6, and 7 is talking about. Not that he's not going to tell them the events that lead up to and include the second coming, because very plainly that's what he does in Matthew 24. He's telling them in Acts 1 that it's not going to be, the kingdom will not be restored to Israel. The kingdom age that they're asking about in Matthew 24, it's not going to happen during their natural lifetimes. They will not experience it firsthand. And The same kind of thing is written by Paul to the church of Thessalonica in 1 Thessalonians 5:1. But of the times and seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you. Well, they could read by that point. They would have had scripture available, and now anyone reading that can read Revelation and find out, all of the things that are going to happen prior to that, what the times and the seasons consist of. He's telling that church they have no need that he writes to them because they're not going to be here to go through it. Assuming that it would have happened in their lifetime, which clearly it didn't, they would have been removed in the rapture, which he talked about in 1 Thessalonians 4, the prior chapter. So he's not telling them that they don't need to know. He's saying that they don't have any that he writes to them about the times, which is the chronos. That would be your signs, the times and the things that are associated to the time period that leads up to the seasons, which is kairos, the appointed time. So he's talking about the events of the 70th week and the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ at the end of the week. That's what times and seasons are about. Again, when we go back to Acts 1:6-7, it says the same thing. It's not for you to know the times or the seasons. It's not for you to be here to experience this in your natural lifetime. So they didn't need to, not that they didn't need to understand what was going to happen, it's that they wouldn't be here to experience it. So just to kind of clarify, in case anyone, that might have come up in anyone's minds, I don't know if it would have or not. But so he says again in verse 3, and they sat upon the Mount of Olives, and the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? So what's going to happen at the very end of the age that they're in that's going to lead up to and include the second coming of Jesus Christ? What can they visually see that's going to let them know that it's close? Assuming that it was going to happen in their lifetime, what could they look at to see that the physical return of Jesus to set up his millennial kingdom on earth? What could they look at to see that? Jesus answered them and said unto them. Okay. You guys probably all know what those are. When I was setting this up, I said he's going to give them very contextually specific things that are going to lead up to and include his second coming. He's actually going to list these things in order, except for this, because there's a bit more to explain afterwards. Hey, Mike, welcome. The signs and the times and the seasons, the signs of the coming and of the end of the age, all of that refers to the same thing. It's the very specific events of Daniel's 70th week that result in the second coming of Jesus Christ. Hey, Dana, welcome. I'm glad Robin said hi to you because I missed your name there. Hi, welcome. So basically what he's going to do is he's going to list in order the seals that begin the 70th week. And we can 100% confirm this to be the case. What he is referencing are specific to Revelation seals from verse 8. We'll get there though. So in verse 4, Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed no man deceive you. This is the very first thing that he's warning them to, or at this point, since we're not in that generation. He's warning the people that will be alive at that time, Jew specific. That's one thing I forgot to mention. My apologies for doing that. Chapter placement, before we get into this. Chapter placement. In Daniel 9:25, he says 7 weeks and 62 weeks. I'm sorry. I'll just read it. Daniel 9:25. 26. After 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. Basically what this is telling us, the 70 weeks prophecy, which is from Daniel 9:24, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to do 6 things. He's saying there's going to be a break in time. After the first 69 weeks of years, there's going to be the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And then there's going to be this other point in time. The 70th week is not attached to the first 69. It's an independent period of time that has its own starting point based on a specific event, which is the confirmation of the covenant, Daniel 9:27. But he says, after 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off. We are actually in Matthew 24 and 25 between those two events. We are after the 62 weeks. After the 62 weeks. Matthew 21. Palm Sunday was the end of the first 69 weeks of years. Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey, and they were trying to accept him as the Son of David. Hosanna to the Son of David, Hosanna in the highest. Well, he didn't come in that capacity. Basically, what the prophecy that he had referenced was from Zechariah 9, which talks about him coming on the colt of an ass, or the foal of an ass, riding into Jerusalem. But the rest of that prophecy talked about him sacrificing himself, laying his life down, shedding his blood. And they missed that. They missed that part of it. But they understood the prophecy, and so they went to go welcome their king. But again, he didn't come in that capacity. However, on Palm Sunday, Nisan 10, 4 days before he went to the cross, before Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself, you have this 4-day window of time. You're still under the age of law when they're forward looking to the kingdom, but the first 69 weeks are done. The 70th week's not started yet because there's, again, an independent event related to the beginning of that, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, talking about the Antichrist. So you're in that 4-day window of time before the new covenant exists. It's pre-cross, it's pre-church, which means it's pre-mystery of the church, pre-mystery of the rapture, pre-all of that. You're still Jew-centric. The church, like I said, did not exist yet, but then also the dispensation of the grace of God did not exist yet because, again, it's pre-cross. He didn't go to the cross until Nisan 14, which is in Matthew 27. So this chapters that we're going through are halfway between the end of the 69 weeks and the cross. Everything that is going on in Matthew 24 and 25 relates to the Jews. It has nothing to do with the church, nothing to do with the time period associated to the church. It has to do with the kingdom age, the physical return of Jesus to earth, which, again, in Matthew 23:39, he plainly told them in maybe vague terms that he wasn't going to be here forever. So he's saying they're not going to see him again until they come to a saving knowledge of him. They realize that who they are are rejecting and are ultimately going to reject on the day of his crucifixion and demand the crucifixion of. They're going to eventually recognize him as the Messiah, and they will mourn for him they pierced. But we'll get to that, maybe. But this is, to make a long story short, everything that's going on here is Jew-specific, it's 70th week specific, and it's leading up to and including the physical return of Jesus to earth to establish his kingdom. That's what all of this is pointing toward. So he says, "Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many." They're not claiming to be Jesus. He's not saying that they're going to claim to be Jesus, the Son of God. Christ means anointed one. Antichrist means he who comes in the place of Christ. Now, this might seem a bit at odds with John 5:43, which says, "I am come in my Father's name, and ye receive me not. If another shall come in his own name, him ye shall receive." So Jesus is saying he came in the Father's name to do the will of the Father, to do the will of the Father that sent him. He didn't come in his own name. So here in Matthew 24, it's worded a bit differently, but the meaning is pretty much still the same. The person who comes is going to come in the name of Christ, in the name of the Anointed One, to be Israel's Messiah. He will not be, because plainly we're told if another shall come in his own name, or come who is not Jesus Christ himself, then he is Antichrist. And that's what this is saying. Many are going to come in his name. There's one specific. "Take heed that no man deceive you." There's one specific. Many are going to come saying that they are the anointed one and shall deceive many. There's one specific one that is going to start Daniel's 70th week. Again, that goes to Daniel 9:27. For he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Again, it's all Israel specific. The many refers to the religious leaders in Israel. Verse 6, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye not be troubled, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Kingdom against kingdom is ethnic group against ethnic group. When we go to Revelation 6, I don't know if I have it. Yeah. Revelation 6:4. This is what is said about the second seal. And there went out a horse that was red, and power was given him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. So this is talking about not just nation rising against nation, and ethnic group against ethnic group. Basically what this is, basically in combination with the second seal judgment, it's saying it's not just going to be nations with militaries fighting one another like in the other world wars. It's going to be, and Billy Crone hit this nail right on the head. I don't know how many of you caught the video that was done yesterday or the day before with Prophecy Watchers, which talks about the second seal. It's going to be like people are just walking down the street and then they start to, kill each other. Taking peace from the earth is not just country against country, it's an individual against individual. Everyone is going to be fighting everyone. That's what this is saying here when it's talking about nation against nation, fine, but kingdom against kingdom. It's ethnos, or ethnos versus ethnos, or ethnic group against ethnic group. It's people versus people. And there shall be famine, and pestilences, and earthquakes in diverse places. This is a very, very specific citing of the opening of the seals from Revelation 6. This is not talking about, there's a lot of people that are antichrists now, or a lot of people that are trying to deceive others. Or we see in the Middle East, there's countries that are getting ready to fight each other if they're not already. This is not talking about general time periods. Or, there was an earthquake here, an earthquake there, and yes, we track these things. But these are all very specific to points in time which regard the beginning of the 70th week. The arrival of Jesus Christ is given a very specific day count in association to Daniel's 70th week, the 2,520 days. The arrival of Jesus Christ at the second coming will occur 2,520 days from when Seal 1 is opened. It's given a very specific time period. And so basically what he's saying is all of these things that are going to lead up to my coming are going to start with what gets the clock started. And that's Revelation 6. And he's telling exactly what is linked to the beginning of the time clock that starts the countdown to his arrival. And we know this is specific to Revelation 6 from Matthew 24:8. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Perhaps better stated from 1 Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say, confirmation of the covenant, Daniel 70th week, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Travail upon a woman with child, birth pains, beginning of sorrows. All of these things are linked together. What he's talking about is what starts the countdown to his arrival, which is the opening of the first seal through 6 seals he's talking about. It's a specific link to Revelation 6. None of these things have happened yet. Do we see all of these things? Well, no, because the wild beasts aren't here yet. Yeah, we do, but it's not specific to worldwide things that will impact like the seals will. Those will be worldwide. And so this is where people attempt to generalize it. because we see some of these things happening now, and so, oh, this must be a sign that we're close. Well, no. What he's talking about is very specific things, like to a very specific point in time, which starts a very specific countdown to a very specific event, which is his second coming. Everything here is very specific. So, I don't need that anymore. I just wanted to, as I read through those, show you how one by one they're all linked to in the same order as the opening of the seals, with the exception of seal 5, and there's a reason for that. These next verses actually talk about seal 5. Hey Sharon, welcome. If I didn't say hi, welcome to you. So in verse 9 it says, "Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake." This is where one of the places where it's really plain to see that the first half of Daniel's 70th week will not be peaceful for the Jews. Many people are under the impression that once this peace treaty is signed, the Jews, like Israel, will be the safest place to be for the first 3.5 years of the week. The Jews will be safe, and that they'll basically just be trucking along peacefully, or whatever, while the rest of the world is in shambles until the abomination of desolation. No, that's not true whatsoever. It's that they won't recognize that their Messiah is the Antichrist is not their real Messiah until the midpoint of the week, when he does this thing to absolutely let them know that he's not. But that doesn't mean that they're still not going to be killed for their faith and things like that. They clearly are, which is what we're told in Matthew 24. Again, they shall deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. This goes directly to what we're told in Isaiah 28. There is basically a sequence of events given in Isaiah 28 that is specific to the Jews, and how they will believe themselves to be safe when they enter into what they believe is the Messianic era of peace. That their Messiah has come and they have covenanted with him and they're safe. They will not be, and we're specifically told that here. Isaiah 28:7, "But they have also erred through wine, and through strong drink are out of the way. The priest and the prophet have erred through strong drink. They are swallowed up with wine, they are out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision, they stumble in judgment." Verse 13, it says, "But the word of the Lord was unto them precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little, and they might go and fall backward and be broken and snared and taken. Because the priest and the prophet, who are the many, the teachers of the many, or the rabbis in Israel, are the ones who are specifically mentioned in Daniel 9:27, who confirm this covenant with the Antichrist," which is why I came here, because we're talking about the priests and the prophets, err in judgment, they stumble in judgment, they err in vision, or however it calls that. So they don't recognize what the scriptures tell them. They didn't recognize Jesus, and they're accepting this one who comes in the stead of Christ, or in the place of Christ, the Antichrist, that they might go and fall backward and be broken and snared and taken. "Wherefore hear the word of the Lord, ye scornful men that rule this people which is in Jerusalem," religious leaders. "Because ye have said, we have made a covenant with death, and with hell are we in agreement. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it shall not come unto us, for we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood have we hid ourselves." Because they think themselves in this era that they're not, because they've accepted this person who is not who they believe him to be. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, "Behold, I lay in Zion for a foundation, a stone, a tried stone, a precious stone, a sure a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. He that believeth shall not make haste." They believe in Jesus Christ. They could have avoided all of this, but they didn't. So what's the result of that? What's the result of the confirmation of this covenant? What happens to them immediately upon confirmation of the covenant? Verse 17 through 20. "Judgment also will I lay to the line, and righteousness to the plummet. And the hail shall sweep away the refuge of lies, and the water shall overflow the hiding place. And your covenant with death shall be disannulled, and your agreement with hell shall not stand. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, then ye shall be trodden down by it." There will be no safety immediately. It's not a 3.5 years later thing. It's that they believe that this age that they're going to be brought into via this confirmation of the covenant and acceptance of this Antichrist will lead to something that immediately shows them, should show them that they were wrong. But verse 20 tells them that they're still not going to be too quick on the uptake. But verse 19 says, from the time that it shall go forth, it shall take you. From the very beginning, right after the confirmation of the covenant. This is the sudden destruction in 1 Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Matthew 24 is beginning of sorrows. All of the seal judgments forward. From the time that it goeth forth, it shall take you. Morning by morning it shall pass over, by day and by night, and it shall be a vexation only to understand the report. They won't understand why it's happening. They're going to try to understand why it's happening, but they will not understand why it's happening. Not yet. This is what Jesus is alluding to, all of this stuff. I don't know exactly what the overflowing scourge is. Sharon. Sorry, I can't answer that for you. I don't know if it's a military invasion or not, although I would, I don't know. Probably not. But I can't say for sure, so I will not even attempt to answer that. So in verse 9, again in Matthew 24, they shall deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. Well, this is actually talked about in Micah 7. Micah 7, 1-6. Woe is me, for I am as when they have gathered the summer fruits, as the grape gleanings of the vintage, there is no cluster to eat. My soul desired the first ripe fruit. The good man is perished out of the earth, and there is none upright among men. They all lie in wait for blood, they hunt every man his brother with a net, that they may do evil with both hands earnestly. The prince asketh, and the judge asketh for a reward. And the great man, he uttereth his mischievous desire. So they wrap it up. The best of them is as a briar. The most upright is sharper than a thorn hedge. The day of thy watchman and thy visitation cometh. Now shall be their perplexity. Trust ye not in a friend. Put ye not confidence in a guide. Keep the doors of thy mouth from her that lieth in thy bosom. For the son dishonoreth the father, and the daughter riseth up against her mother. The daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies are the men of his own house. So, clearly this will not be a time of peace. And they will come to understand that it's every man out for himself. Which is what it talks about in the second seal. Peace being taken from the earth. People are going to be fighting against each other. Just as much as armies are going to be fighting against each other, country against country, but also people against people. When we go back up to verse 9, this is the link to seal 5, the martyrdom or the blood of the saints, and I forgot to mention this. They shall deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you. Ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. When seal 5 is opened in Revelation 6, it says in verse 9, and when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them, They should rest yet for a little season until their fellow servants also and their brethren that shall be killed as they were shall be fulfilled. We actually see in Revelation 18 and 19 where the blood of the saints and martyrs that is opened at the fifth seal, or what is referenced in the fifth seal, is avenged in Revelation 18 and 19 with the destruction of Babylon, and then further avenged by Jesus Christ himself at the second coming, and that's in Joel 3. So the resolution to the opening of the fifth seal, or when they're delivered up and afflicted and killed and hated for his name's sake, that begins at the fifth seal, and it's, like I said, it's resolved with the destruction of Babylon and at his second coming. But Revelation 18:20 through chapter 19, verse 3, it says, Rejoice over her, thou heaven, ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her, talking about the destruction of Babylon. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall thy great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of harpers and musicians and of pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. And I'll come back to these verses in a little bit. And no craftsman whatsoever craft he be shall be found no more in thee. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee, and the light of a candle shall no more at all shine in thee. And the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee, for thy merchants were the great men of the earth, and for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. And in her was the blood of prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth. Chapter 19, verse 1. And after these things I heard a great voice of much people in heaven saying, Alleluia, salvation and glory and honor and power unto the Lord our God. For true and righteous are his judgments. For he hath judged the great whore which did corrupt the earth with her fornication, and hath avenged the blood of his servants at her hand. And again they said, Alleluia, and her smoke rose up forever and ever. And then what wasn't avenged by the destruction of Babylon, Jesus takes care of at the second coming. Joel 3:21, For I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed, for the Lord dwelleth in Zion. Cleanse means avenged. Whatever blood wasn't avenged by the destruction of Babylon, he will avenge for the saints and martyrs, those who were told they would have vengeance on those who killed them. That will be meted out at the second coming by Jesus himself. For I will avenge or cleanse their blood that I have not avenged, for the Lord dwelleth in Zion. So, let's see. Then we'll go to the verse 10 again. And then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. Again, that goes back to Micah 7. And many false prophets shall arise and shall deceive many. Well, there will be one specific false prophet that we know of, an antichrist and a false prophet during the 70th week. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. Verse 13, But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. A lot of people believe that there will be no pre-trib rapture based on this verse, that we have to endure toward the end. Or to the end. And I guess I question that because it's pretty arrogant to think that anyone that's not part of the remnant, which they wouldn't even know about at this time anyway, is going to be saved. There's going to be billions and billions of people that are going to die during this week. So it's very arrogant to assume that anyone will be, that if I went into the 70th week, that I would be alive at the end of it. And that only the people that are alive at the end of it will be saved. Well, what about the resurrections of all the other people and stuff like that? It doesn't make sense. This isn't about the church. But more importantly, the word enduring to the end, literally to remain up or bear up or endure. For the believer, this happens by the power of God. It's basically a different context, but the same type of thing. In 2 Timothy 4:7, Paul, when he's nearing the end of his life, writing his final epistle, and he's specifically talking about the crown of righteousness, which is church specific, I realize that. But he says, I have fought the good fight, I have finished my course, I have kept the faith. All of our courses are not the same, even if they end in the same spot or result in the same thing. They're not all going to end in the same spot. And so what my end is might be the same end as someone else, although at the end of both of our ends, we both get to go to the same spot. We both get to enjoy the same thing. That's not what it's talking about here. It's talking about the endurance of faith. And whatever the end may be for whomever it may be, that they endure to their own end, that they keep the faith. It may be that they get martyred. It may be that they make it through the end of the week. Who knows? And honestly, who cares? It's all about faith. It's that to the end of their end, however that comes about, that they endure, that they keep the faith, that they remain strong and borne by the Lord. because they're not going to be sealed with the Holy Spirit during the 70th week. They're going to have to endure to the end. The same faith will save them, but they are not sealed like we are. So that's the difference, is they're going to have to endure to a degree that we at this point don't, because we are sealed, and they will not be. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. So now we get to the midpoint of the week. We started with the beginning of the week, which was the opening of the seals, and now he's going to get to the midpoint of the week. Verse 14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Well, we are not preaching the gospel of the kingdom right now. We're preaching the gospel of grace. The grace of Jesus Christ on the cross, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. That is what we preach. The gospel of the kingdom is forward-looking to the time that he will return. What all of this is about, the signs leading up to the time that he will return to physically establish his kingdom on earth. And that is different. And that is what will be preached during the 70th week, because obviously the rapture will have already occurred and the age of grace will be over. So they're not going to be talking about the gospel of grace. They're going to be they're not going to be preaching the gospel of the dispensation of grace. They're going to be preaching the gospel of the kingdom, which is different. End result still the same. The only way they can be saved is still only by faith, but it's a different type of gospel. This takes us to Revelation 10 and Revelation 14. This is a midpoint of the week event. Revelation 10:7 first talks about it. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants the prophets. The mysteries of God are all the mysteries through all of the ages that result in the salvation of people, which includes the gospel message, primarily the gospel message. It relates specifically to Revelation 14:6-7. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach to them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God and give glory to him. For the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven, the earth, the sea, and the fountains of water. This is a mid-trib event, and it happens before the reaping of the earth. In Revelation 14, this is what the first of the three angels flies through the midst of the heaven warning about. The first is preaching the everlasting gospel. First, before everything else, this is the right way. And then the second angel flies through the midst of the heaven preaching about the imminent destruction of Babylon, which actually will occur 3.5 years later. Not imminent that it could happen at any time, but that it's a foregone conclusion that 3.5 years later, literally the last thing to happen before the second coming of Jesus, will be the destruction of Babylon. And then the third angel tells everybody not to take the mark of the beast, or worship the image of the beast, or worship the beast, lest they be condemned to fiery death and eternal judgment forever and ever, in much more dire words than that. And then the rest of Revelation 4 shows Jesus taking his place in preparation to reap the earth, which constitutes the events of the second half of Daniel's 70th week. So that is a mid-trib event. It's got nothing to do with pre-rapture or the gospel of grace being preached, that the rapture can't happen until every single person has had a chance to hear the gospel. Have no fear that the angel that flies through the midst of the heavens in the midst of the week will make sure that everyone on earth has had a chance to hear the gospel, to make a decision one way or the other, because that is the same point in time that the mark of the beast and the image of the beast, the mark will be implemented and the image will be erected to either worship it or don't, because the previous chapter, Revelation 13, says that the false prophet is given leave to cause all that should not take the mark or worship the image or worship the beast should be killed. And so the warning has to go out, you can't do this unless before that is caused to be done. Otherwise, they can't be righteously judged for doing it when they didn't know what it was going to lead to. So these are all mid-trib events. The gospel, the preaching of the gospel of the kingdom, preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then the end shall come. That's Revelation 14:6-7. The angel flying in the midst of the heaven will make sure that that is done and taken care Yes, creation speaks of the Creator, who is Jesus Christ. Hebrews 1, 1 and 2 is exactly who the angel flying is going to be preaching about, Jesus Christ himself. God, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the worlds. So that's the gospel. We'll be talking about Jesus Christ. And the other option is to take the mark of the Antichrist, or worship the Antichrist, or worship the image of the Antichrist. So this final preaching of the gospel is literally Christ versus Antichrist. Midpoint of the week. Which precipitates the abomination of desolation. After this angel preaches the everlasting gospel, then the Antichrist goes into the temple and proclaims himself to be above God, above all of the angel just preached about, so that he sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Well, that is exactly what Daniel 9:27 says will happen at the midpoint of the week. And he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate. And this is what Jesus is referring to specifically, that specific event at the midpoint of the week. When the Jews see that, it's time to get out of Jerusalem. So verse 15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight not be in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor shall ever be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Verse 22 is a verse that causes a lot of people a lot of trouble. Talking about the shortened days, and if the days weren't shortened, there should no flesh be saved. This is talking about the remnant's time in Jerusalem. Verse 15 through 22 is a package deal. It's talking about if anyone stays behind, they're going to be killed. And so the only way to preserve the flesh, because the Lord needs live bodies to call Jesus back for the second coming. Again, we go to Matthew 23:39. For I say unto you, ye shall not see me henceforth till ye shall say, Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. Well, obviously there have to be people alive at the end of the week to do that. And what he's saying is, if people didn't leave, if this remnant wasn't given the warning to flee when they see this event, to get out of Jerusalem, they would all be killed, and there would be no one alive to call Jesus back. Thus, there would be no second coming. Which is why, when you go to Revelation 12, you see Satan trying to kill the fleeing remnant, sending a flood after them that God intercepts. Because there must be a remnant preserved in order to precipitate the return of Jesus Christ. And that is why the warning goes out. If they had not left, if their days in Jerusalem were not shortened by their flight out of there into the wilderness to be protected for the entire second half of the week, no flesh would be saved. They would all be killed off. There would be no second coming. But for the elect's sake, and the remnant who the Lord shall call, in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there shall be deliverance. And as the Lord hath said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. That's Joel 2:32. It's exactly what this is talking about. So a lot of people have difficulty with this verse, but it's really pretty simple. It's that if they didn't flee, if their bodies did not get out of there, they would be killed, and the second coming of Jesus would, for all intents and purpose, be thwarted. But God preserves a remnant so that Jesus Christ can return and set up his kingdom that he was promised. And except those days should be shortened, those days in Jerusalem, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened by the warning to flee and the flight. That's all that means. So then we go to verse 23. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. Why? Well, this goes directly to, I was talking about the link to Revelation 12 and the flight of the remnant, that God saves them and preserves them for the second half of the week. Well, then verses 23 go directly to Revelation 13 and the Antichrist and the false prophet. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they should deceive the very elect. It's not talking about the church. It's talking about the false signs and wonders that especially the Antichrist with his fake resurrection, and the false prophet with his calling down fire from heaven and making the image of the beast speak and all of that stuff. Deceiving. That's exactly what's in view there. I won't read those verses, but Revelation 13 is what these are talking about. Behold, I have told you before. So he's saying these things are going to happen. There's false Christs and false prophets that will have false signs and false miracles, coinciding with 2 Thessalonians 2, whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. Well, what's in Revelation 12 at the beginning of the chapter? Great wonder and a sign. Lying signs and wonders. This is talking about the real ones in comparison to the false ones that are being detailed for the second half of the week, specifically relating to the Antichrist and the false prophet. So again, then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they should deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. Why? Because he's going to tell you exactly what the second coming of Jesus Christ is going to look like. So anything less is false. Anything else is just a lying sign and wonder. This is what the second coming of Jesus Christ will look like. For as lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. No mistaking it. He's very clearly saying the glory of the Lord Jesus Christ will light up the night sky. There will be no mistaking it. So any other lying sign or wonder by any false Christ or false prophet or anything else is just that. If it's not what he's saying is going to happen when he returns, then it's not his return. So this is the sign of the Son of Man that will be seen by the whole world. For as lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. So this is another verse that causes a lot of people some heartburn. Immediately after the tribulation of those days. So, like, it could be the Hebrew days start in the evening. Zechariah 14 tells us that the Lord's going to return in the evening. I anticipate that the actual day count of the tribulation will end at the end of the day, which is 6 p.m. on a Hebrew calendar. And immediately after the tribulation of those days is literally 6 p.m. the evening starts. Evening and morning were the first day. So that's how I think it'll play out, but that's just my own thought. But we know the Lord's going to return in the evening. Zechariah 14:7. But it shall be one day which shall be known to the Lord, not day nor night, but it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. Evening and morning were the first day, so at evening time it shall be light. Why? Because as lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. This is referred to as the glorious appearing. All the lights will be turned out. So immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened. The sun is turned off. From this point forward, the sun is turned off. Well, the moon reflects the sun's light. This is not talking about an eclipse or a new moon or anything like that. The moon reflects the sun's light to the earth. If the sun is not shining, then there is no reflection of the moon either. This is a default situation. It's not about natural eclipses or about Feast of Trumpets or anything like that. It's about the sun being turned off. Isaiah 65 talks about this in the millennial kingdom. I just have to find the verse because I know this is the chapter. Maybe it's the chapter. This is important, so bear with me just a second. I want to get this right so I can read you the verses that talk about how the sun will not be shining in the millennial kingdom. Maybe it's not. Isaiah 60. So I lied. Sorry. It's not Isaiah 65. It's Isaiah 60. Verse 18. Violence shall no more be heard in thy land, wasting nor destruction within thy borders. But thou shalt call thy walls salvation, and thy gates praise. The sun shall no more be thy light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light unto thee. But the Lord shall be unto thee an everlasting light, and thy God thy glory. The sun shall no more go down, neither shall thy moon withdraw itself, for the Lord shall be thine everlasting light, and the days of thy mourning shall be ended. Thy people shall all be righteous. They shall inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation, and I, the Lord, will hasten it in his time. So, there will be no sun shining and no moon shining in the millennial kingdom. Isaiah 60 pretty plainly tells us. Matthew 24 tells us when they will cease their shining, and it will be immediately after the tribulation of those days. Again, this doesn't relate to a specific feast or anything like that, to a new moon or some natural occurrence. It's literally that the sun is made to stop shining for good at this point in time. And the moon doesn't give her light because the moon reflects the sun's light, and if the sun's not shining, there's no light to reflect. That's what this is talking about. It's all based on the sun. Why? Because the sun, capital S-O-N, or S-U-N, capital, is going to be the light from that point forward. There will be no more created light. It will be the light of the sun shining from that point and his second coming. His glory is appearing and forward. He will be the light. That's why all these lights are turned off. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. And the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. This is more than likely a reference to, Sharon, I'll get to your questions in just a little bit. I see them. I saw that there's other ones too, so I will address all of them, but just give me a little bit. The stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. This is more than likely a reference to stars as angels, like the dragon sweeping a third of the stars down to earth, because we're told that their thrones will be cast down. In Daniel, thrones as in the principalities and powers and rulers in high places. At the second coming, their thrones will be cast down. Daniel 7, we'll start with verse 21. I beheld the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. That's the beginning of the second half of the week, related to Revelation 13. Until, which is the second coming here, until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High God, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. But maybe that's not... I can't search for words, and I'm used to searching for words, so. Do it this way. Okay, it was earlier in Daniel 7. He has a couple of different visions in that chapter, so I just had the wrong one. Verse 7, and after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, and devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Still relating back to the vision of the beast with the 10 horns in Revelation 13. So I just had the wrong vision, but it's the same reference point here. And I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things and great blasphemies, if you go to Revelation 13. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, principalities and powers, rulers of the darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places. That's probably what the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. The stars falling from heaven and the powers of the heavens being shaken. It could be a reference to that. I'm not saying it is, but it could be. And I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was as the fiery flame, and his wheels of burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. So then we'll go to Matthew 24:30. And then after the sun is turned off, so the moon stopped shining because it stopped reflecting the sun, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken, everything cast down to earth, basically. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Well, what's the sign of the Son of Man in heaven? Just what verse 27 says, for his lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. It's not a constellation or anything like that, because what were we just told? All of these celestial things will cease from shining. So it can't be a constellation. Then shall the sign of the Son of Man appear in heaven. It's the glorious appearing, the lightning and lighting up the night sky, all that stuff. Then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Zechariah 12:10. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplication. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. But that's about believers. What about everybody else? Isaiah 45:23. And I have sworn by myself, the word is gone out of my mouth in righteousness, and shall not return, that unto me every knee shall bow, every tongue shall swear. That's what's going to happen at this time. Yay. What else? Verse 31. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. This is because they get scattered. The midpoint of the week, after the Antichrist has made it clear he's not who they think he is, they will be led away from their land into captivity. And this is basically him gathering everyone that's been taken out of Jerusalem back to Jerusalem. Or the angels will. Not him specifically, but the angels. In verse 7 of Zechariah 13, awake, O sword, against my shepherd and against the man that is my fellow, saith the Lord of hosts. Smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered, and I will turn my hands upon the little ones. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. And I will bring the third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Lord is my God. But then we also go to Zechariah 14, 1 and 2. It says, behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished. And half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. And then in Joel 3, 1 through 7, it kind of says a lot of the same stuff. For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, or bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations, and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine that they might drink. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head? Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. Your children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border. Behold, I will raise them up out of their place whither ye have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head. So everyone that's been scattered throughout the week will be brought back to Jerusalem by the angels to gather the elect from the 4 winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Wherever they are in the world, they will be gathered back at this time. Which is not the rapture, because the Lord himself descends from heaven with a shout to catch us all up. We're not gathered by the angels, nor are we even told the angels are present. It's not the rapture. So anyway, so when is that all going to happen? Verse 32 is where he starts to get into some parabolic speaking. He was talking about specific events that were going to happen, which related to specific points in time. And now some of what he's going to be talking about is in parables here. Verse 32, now learn the parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So it's basically saying when these things come to pass, these are the signs. Like a fig tree, when it starts sprouting leaves, you know it's going to start bearing its fruit. Well, when these signs begin to come to pass, and you know the second coming is near, because this is what I told you is going to happen right before. That's what he's talking about there. So likewise, ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. This generation is actually a reference to the last generation. Not specifically the generation he was talking to, but to the terminal generation, which we are. And how cool is that? He says, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. And that does go back to Isaiah 65, where he talks about recreating heavens and the earth, the new heavens and the new earth into the millennial kingdom, free from the curse of sin. So if you figure it'll probably be exactly like it was when God originally created, and that's how people will be living on an earth, in a heavens and earth in the millennial kingdom, free from the curse of sin. So heaven and earth will pass away, the ones we live on now, because a new one will be created in its place where we'll live for 1,000 years. So heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. Holy cow, we got to the verse. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. What was he just talking about? The day that the heavens and the earth passed away, where the ones that we live on now are basically rolled up and thrown away, and a new one's created in its place. Hebrews 1 also talks about this. And thou, O Lord, in the beginning hast laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the works of thine hands. They shall perish, but thou remainest, and they all shall wax old as doth a garment. And as a vesture shalt thou fold them up, and they shall be changed. But thou art the same, and thy years shall fail not. So it's talking about is the time period, or the day specifically, when the heavens and earth will be destroyed by fire. 2 Peter 3 talks about this. I'll get to that in just a second because I wanted to read it, but I'll read it in context of something else. Heaven and earth are going to pass away. There's a specific day in mind. The human history has been given a specific period of time. Actually, I'll read it right now. And when that day comes, the end comes, what was old will be done away with, and a new will replace it. Nobody knows what that day and hour is going to look like. Yes, we can have a day count associated to it. So there is every possibility that, and probability more specifically, that a lot of people are going to know specifically the day that Jesus is going to come back. That's not being hidden. What they don't know is what the events of that day are going to look like, because there's no reference point. It's never happened before. That's what the word knoweth means. It's a visual thing. There's no one alive, mortal or immortal, that has ever existed in this since creation that has any idea what the events of this day are going to look like, because it's never happened before. It's a visual thing. There's no visual reference point. But of that day and hour, the events where heaven and earth pass away, the events of the second coming, everything that he's been talking about, no man, knoweth no man. No man, no angel has ever seen, but my Father only. Jesus in his humanity would have had knowledge limited by what the Spirit had been revealing to him up till that time. Well, now in his glorified state, obviously he knows everything, and the Father who created it all, designed it all to happen, declaring the end from the beginning, my counsel shall stand, and I shall do all my pleasure. The same thing is referenced in Zechariah 14, also in verse 7. There's always witness verses. And if you can find the witness verse, then you can solidify context. So he says, of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. And this is pretty much what Zechariah 14:7 says too. But it shall be one day which shall be known to the Lord, not day nor night, but it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. It's the events of the glorious appearing. The day of the Lord, the second coming, the destruction of the earth by fire, the rolling up of the heavens and earth, and the replacing it, all of that stuff. There isn't anyone alive outside God the Father and the Lord Jesus Christ, who are, Trinitarian, same being in different person, who know what that's going to look like, because it's never happened before. That's all that's saying. It's got nothing to do with being able to calculate dates or figure it out or know when it's going to happen. It's got to do with what is going to happen, and no one having a reference point. 2 Peter 3, 1-8, it says, the second epistle, beloved, I write unto you, in both which I stir up your pure minds in way of remembrance, that you may be mindful of the words which were spoken before by the holy prophets, and of the commandment of us, the apostles of the Lord and Savior. Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lusts, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that was then being overflowed with water perished. But the heavens and earth which are now, by the same word are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. But, beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. That gives you a reference point pretty vaguely for how long this world is going to last. But it's talking about the events of the day, specifically verse 7. But the heavens and earth which are now, by this which are now, because there are different heavens and earth than existed pre-flood, and they will yet again be different after the Lord comes back. But the heavens and earth which are now, by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. So then he's going to give you another comparison. When we read 2 Peter 2 just now, it talks about the flood. Well, it says in verse 37, but as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Well, a lot of people like to remark about how Noah is a type of the church, and how this relates to the rapture, and things like that. Well, it doesn't. Enoch was a type of the church. Enoch, who walked with God and was not, for God took him, who was taken to be with God 669 years before the flood. Well, Noah was 600 when the flood came, which means Enoch was removed before anything to do with Noah was even on the earth. Noah is a picture of Israel, specifically of the remnant that will be preserved through the flood or through Daniel's 70th week and come out the other side to refill and replenish the earth during the millennial kingdom. They will go into it in their natural bodies. So the similarity is not between Noah and the church, it's between Noah and the remnant of Israel. What it's being spoken about here is that basically the way that people were behaving during the flood is they were carrying on business as usual. And they, regardless of how many hundreds of years they saw Noah, because people lived for hundreds of years back then, they saw him every day building the ark and probably preaching the gospel. His sons, his family, all of them being faithful. This would not have been a foreign thing to them. But they laughed and they scoffed and they mocked. Until the day that God shut the door, judgment was set, the rains came, and they died. Everything that had the breath of God in its nostrils died. And so that was one of the questions I received, is I'll answer it now, is how can this not relate to the rapture? How could, in light of all of the judgments that will be going on during the 70th week, how could it be business as usual? How could this be about the second coming? Well, I read this earlier about Babylon. The destruction of Babylon, if you read Revelation 16, Revelation 14 is when it is first foreshadowed. It's the second angel that flies through the midst of the heaven warning about the destruction of Babylon. But if you read Revelation 16, you'll find out that that doesn't actually happen until after the seventh vial judgment is poured out. Revelation 16:17. And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, "It is done." And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. So this is something that happens, the destruction of Babylon happens after the 7th vial is poured out, which is the 21st of 21 judgments, and just before the second coming in Revelation 18. And the destruction of Revelation 19. And the destruction of Babylon is mentioned in chapters 17 and 18. But I read these verses earlier, and in verse 21, it starts to talk about what activities were going on that with the destruction of the city will cease. These are the same things that were going on in the days of Noah, to show that in some respect, regardless of how much we can or can't understand, everything, that there will be some semblance of business as usual. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, "Thus with violence shall the great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And the voices of harpers and musicians and of pipers and of trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. No more partying. And no craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found no more in thee. People won't be working anymore because the city will be destroyed. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. So preparation of food, millstone grinding, grains, things like that. And the light of a candle shall no more be at all in thee. And the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. People were marrying and being given in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark, and knew not when the flood came and took them all away. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, and for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. So yes, regardless of how we can picture things going, because I really can't. I don't know how it's going to be. I don't know how people are going to be living amidst all the judgments. I'm just glad I won't be here. But they will very much be a business as usual component to where all of these things are going on that will cease at the second coming when judgment rains down. And Babylon is a perfect archetype of that, which again will occur. It'll be on a more worldwide basis, not just in that city, but he'll put a stop to it when he shuts the door and returns at the second coming. Basically, anyone who's not saved by faith in Jesus Christ at that time, by that time, the door will be shut and no more chance will be given. So that's what it's talking about. It's not anything to do with the rapture. It's really specifically to do with the second coming. I see more questions, and after we get done with Matthew 24, which we're almost done with, I will go back through before I start with Matthew 25. So just hang in there for me, please. So that's the days of Noah. It literally is a reference to the second coming. It's got nothing to do with the church. Like I said, Enoch was the type of the church who was gone before Noah was even ever born. So anything to do with Noah is a reference to Israel, specifically to the believing remnant preserved through coming out the other side of. And everyone who doesn't believe in Jesus will be subject to the judgment, just like no one who wanted to partake of the safety and enter in through the door of the ark, which would have required belief in God, faith professed, like Noah and his family. They were subject to judgment and they were killed during the flood. So then we go to verse 40. It says, Then shall two be in the field. The one shall be taken and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill. The one shall be taken and the other left. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. So a lot of people try to attribute this to the rapture also, talking about, business as usual. Well, it won't be business as usual, so it must relate to the rapture. We already addressed that. But this actually goes back to the separation of the wheat and the tares at the end of the age in Matthew 13. Two working, one taken, the other left. Well, which one gets taken? Not the good one. Matthew 13, starting in verse 36. Then Jesus sent the multitude away and went into his house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares in the field. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, the good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in this end of the world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity. So the one that's left is the one that's going to go into the millennial kingdom. The ones that are taken are the ones that are thrown into the furnace of fire. And shall cast them into a furnace of fire, and there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. So, and that's actually what the very last verse of Matthew 24 talks about, verse 51, and shall cut him asunder and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So this is the harvest of the tares, not the harvest of the wheat. The wheat are the ones that are left behind. The tares are gathered by the angels and thrown into the furnace of fire. So that's what those two verses mean. Then shall two be left in the field, one shall be taken, the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, one shall be taken, the other left. So the ones taken are the ones thrown into the fire. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. This is the same word that is used in Matthew 23:36, where it says, but of that day and hour knoweth no man, talking about a visual reference point. This in verse 42, watch therefore. Watch is visual, for ye know, visualize. Cannot visually understand the events of that day, what hour your Lord doth come. So this has got to do with visual understanding, not like intellectual, I can figure it out based on a day count type thing. Or being left in the dark because of the thief in the night stuff. It's got nothing to do with that. It's a visual observance. There's going to be two types of people, and that's what all of these parables are leading up to. And even when we get to the next chapter, the parable of the 10 virgins and of the parable of the talents, that's what all of these parables are talking about, is there's two choices. There are two types of people that will be left on the day of the second coming. Those who are faithful, who will go into the millennial kingdom, and those who are unfaithful and will not go into the millennial kingdom. That's the only two options here. And so talking about as the days of Noah were, two options. You're either in the ark or you're not on the ark. You've either believed in Jesus Christ or you haven't, and you're either going to be saved and go into the kingdom or you're going to die in judgment. The two taken, or the two in the field, one taken, the other left. The one left to go into the kingdom, the one taken not. So the watching is not about because he's going to come on you as a thief. The only way that that's going to occur is if you are unprepared spiritually. If you are prepared spiritually, then it doesn't matter when he comes, you're going to go. If you are unprepared, then it does matter. If you're unprepared spiritually, if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, then it is going to matter when he comes because you may not have any time. So those are the only two options here. Watching. Why do you need to watch if you're spiritually prepared? Because then it wouldn't necessarily matter when it happens, because when it does, you're secure either way. You only need to watch if you're not prepared. Because then, if you're not prepared, you can get prepared. But by the time he comes back, there's not going to be a warning. You're going to be out of time. It's basically what he's saying here. Verse 43 starts another kind of lesson about this same spiritual preparedness. Prepared or unprepared. And if you're not prepared, then it's going to, when it happens, there's not going to be any time to get ready. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. This is interesting, because and really this is one of those where if you just look up the words, it tells you what it means. In such an hour as ye think not. God's not trying to fool us. He's not trying to play a joke on us. He's not trying to see how many people can't guess what time he's coming back. And I think that's kind of the observation or the takeaway that a lot of people have with some of these verses, is that he's trying to catch people off guard. And that's not what the whole Bible is about. The whole Bible is designed to get people ready. So then why, when it comes to one event, would he try to trick people? It doesn't make sense. Verse 44 says again, therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Well, who's this going to relate to? The people that are spiritually prepared, or the people who are spiritually unprepared? Who are the people that would have to watch? Who are the people that, if they'd known when he was going to come, they would have watched? It means they weren't watching, which means they weren't prepared. He's not talking in these verses to people who are faithful. He's talking to people who have not accepted him, saying, stop delaying. The people who think not. This is a Greek word that I can't pronounce, dokeo, or maybe something like that. It's the subjective mental estimate or opinion about a matter. It directly reflects the personal perspective or values of the person making the subjective judgment call, showing what they esteem or what they don't esteem on an individual level. This is talking about spiritual unpreparedness, an hour when they think not. This is what I had reserved the verses in 2 Peter 3:4. Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers walking after their own lusts and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that was then being overflowed with water perished. Which takes us back to the days of Noah, but also to verse 44 when it says, therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not. In your personal estimation, those unbelievers who are willingly ignorant of the fact that a judgment day is going to come, that the Lord will physically return to judge them, that's the hour that they think not. In their personal estimation, they've decided it's just not going to happen, so they don't need to worry about it. Hopefully that clears that up. Verse 45, who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find doing so. Verily I say unto you that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. And this actually goes hand in hand with the parable of the talents that we'll get into in just a little bit. But if that evil servant, which is the one who had the one talent, this is actually pretty directly linked to the parable of the talents. But if that evil servant say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, when he's not prepared for him, when he thinks he's not going to because he's scoffing or just isn't convinced that it's going to happen, in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites, where there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So, hopefully it's clear that absolutely no parts of this have to do with the rapture of the church. They have nothing to do with the church at all. It's got to do with the signs of the second coming, which are 70th week specific, and the second coming itself, which is the end of the age. Because the age that they were waiting for, the age that they were anticipating, was the millennial kingdom, which requires his return to establish. So that's what all of that was about. Let me go through the questions, and then I'll see if I actually... trying to get to the post, because I know I had a couple of questions, and I just want to make sure I addressed those ones. Okay, Noah type of Israel, yes. Okay, the other question too, and I kind of touched on this, but I'll touch on it more. This part too, question 2. How could the second coming come as a surprise when people can just use the simple day count out of Daniel? Well, that's assuming they know the prophecy, but yes, they absolutely could. To already know when the second coming should occur. Hence, no surprise, yet the thief in the night reference. Okay. The thief in the night is actually mentioned 3 times specifically, where that language is pretty much identical. So you can grab context for that. Matthew 24. Talks about that. Where is 1 Thessalonians 5 also talks about it. Verse 1, it says, but of these times and seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you. Times and seasons being the Chronos and Kairos, which is the events of the 70th week and the actual return of Jesus Christ himself. They won't be here for it, so they don't need to know it. They're believers. They'll have been taken in the rapture. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord is the second coming, cometh as a thief in the night. There's one verse that I kind of always go to solidify that the day of the Lord is the second coming and not the rapture of the church, which, and it's in Zechariah 14. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and the spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. And you go down to verse 4, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives. So Zechariah 14 pretty much puts that in context. A lot of other places do too, but that's kind of my fallback to that. The day of the Lord is the second coming, comes as a thief in the night. Again, you're talking about spiritual preparedness. It's only coming upon a thief to those who aren't watching, to those who aren't prepared, to those who may or may not think it's just not going to happen. That's kind of what I was talking about in Matthew. If people are faithful, then it doesn't matter when it's going to happen, they're going to be prepared and they're not going to be caught off guard. Like the people who were scoffing at Noah weren't caught off guard by judgment when the door finally closed and it was, thrown in their face that they were wrong. The thief in the night is actually pretty clear in, I don't think I have all those verses. Revelation 16 and 2 Peter 3:10 specifically. But the day of the Lord, again, second coming, will come as a thief in the night. I mean, that's probably the most specific you're going to find in 2 Peter 3:10. In the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. So that's probably the most direct you'll find it, is that the thief in the night is not a reference to the rapture or the church, and it's got nothing to do with, nothing to do with either one of those things. It's got to do with the spiritually unprepared at the time of the second coming. Revelation 16:15 also talks about it too, sandwiched in between the pouring out of the 6th and 7th vials. It says, Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. So, thief in the night's got nothing to do with the church or the rapture. It's got only to do with the spiritual preparation or unpreparation at the time of the second coming, when he returns. So hopefully that was clear on both of those. And then the other question I will answer afterwards, because it's related but kind of unrelated to how will they build their temple. I'll probably come back to that because it's kind of unrelated to. Won't these events become more frequent with increased intensity as the second coming draws nearer? The judgments are very specific in the book of Revelation. So, and yes, like earthquakes and things like that will increase with intensity, but everything's pretty much laid out in how it's going to happen. So I think that's kind of just one of those ways to generalize. Yes, it's not untrue. Yes, if you look at earthquake maps and stuff like that, they're increasing frequency and intensity. Yes, but it's still generalizing Matthew 24 to suggest any of that's happening now. It's specifically related to the events of the 70th week. So while I understand your question, but I think that statement generalizes what is specific and doesn't necessarily recognize it for what it is. And there's pretty much only one person that talks about that specifically. But yeah, I mean, it is, but not specifically as it relates to Matthew 24, no. The temple will be rebuilt. It has to be. It's a 70th week thing. But, would they make a covenant with someone who just shows up? Wouldn't he need to be around for a while to convince them? No. Because they're ready and waiting for him now. And all that he needs to do is align with their expectations and their prophecies and come on the heels of the supernatural victory of Gog and Magog. So, no, there won't be any build-up to their acceptance of him. There will be build-up during the week of his kingdom, but to them accepting him, no. Mm-mm. Happy harvest. Hi. I think it's just wonderful, whether we are the church or the believing remnant of Israel at Jesus' second coming, we will all be with him and share in the glorious eternity. We will all have a part. Yes. The salvation of the Jewish nation is a wonderful thing, a very wonderful thing. And although they have horribly bad times to go through, what will come out of that will be great. So at least we have that to look forward to, or we know that's going to happen. So that's the good in the bad. Zechariah 14:4, him standing on the Mount of Olives, is that before or after Matthew 24:27? That is the second coming. Both of those are the same thing. It is that day his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives is the glorious appearing. Lightning coming out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. They're talking about the two different things. Just going to say, Zechariah 14:4 just talks about where he stands in that day. But they're both talking about the second coming. No sun in during the 1,000-year reign of Christ. I thought that period where he is the light. It is in the new heaven and new earth. The new heaven and new earth is recreated twice. Isaiah 60 through 66 are all talking about second coming and millennial kingdom stuff. Revelation 21 and 22 are talking about after the millennial kingdom into eternity. There's 2 times that the heaven and earth will be recreated. It has to be, because the age of righteousness can't be on the same cursed earth. So, if you read Isaiah 60 through 66, those are all talking about second coming and millennial kingdom. And they're distinctly different from Revelation 21 and 22. Those are after the 1,000 years. So you're not wrong. It happens twice. And the reasoning behind it is different in both times. God's dwelling place, after the final recreation of heavens and earth, the earth and heaven fled away from him whose face sat on the great white throne. God cannot dwell among people that aren't saved, that haven't believed in Jesus. So until the final judgment seat and everyone who goes into eternity is righteous, God cannot make his dwelling place among everyone. He will still be in heaven while Jesus is on the throne of David in the millennial kingdom. Revelation 21 talks about the merging of the throne in heaven and the throne of David into one. And yes, there will be a new heaven and a new earth, and God will dwell among everyone at that time. But the millennial kingdom won't be on a sin-cursed earth that was destroyed by fire. It'll be recreated. So you're not wrong, but it happens twice, not just the once. So hopefully that makes it easier to understand. It's just hard for me to understand that there won't be day and night in the millennium. I believe that you said there'd be no sun, then Heather help. I didn't say it. I mean, just reading Isaiah 60. There's a specific reference to the age of little ones being 1,000. So there's you're in the millennial kingdom there. Exactly. How could you have a millennial kingdom, a millennial reign on earth that's burned out, right? So why you have a recreated heaven and earth for 1,000 years. Yes, exactly. You can't. So read Isaiah 60. Hopefully that'll clear it up for you. Isaiah 60 and Isaiah 65 are different from Revelation 21 and 22. So before I move on, because I know I've been here for a while, so before I move on, does anyone have any other questions about Matthew 24? Probably go through Matthew 25 pretty quickly. Yay, nay? Okay. So Matthew 25. The kingdom of heaven is likened unto 10 virgins. This is a parable. And we know that because if we go to basically any of the other parables that Jesus taught or likening about the kingdom of heaven, he was teaching in parabolic fashion. This is one of those things that really tricks some people up. There is a passage in Luke 13, maybe? Luke 13, 30. I want to find this before I get started. Because the parable of the 10 virgins is essentially referenced twice. Not nearly in as much detail, but some of these same things are mentioned here that tells you exactly who it regards and when it regards. So I want to find that. Luke 12. One chapter out. Okay. Alright. So, parable of the 10 virgins. We have to kind of go back to Revelation for this. Because we were told in the first verses of the chapter that those in heaven were celebrating the destruction of Babylon. After these things, I heard a great voice of much people in heaven saying, Alleluia, salvation and glory and honor and power unto the Lord our God. For true and righteous are his judgments. For he hath judged the great whore which did corrupt the earth with her fornication, and hath avenged the blood of his servants at her hand. And again they said, Alleluia, and her smoke rose up forever and ever. And the 24 elders and the 4 beasts fell down and worshipped God that sat on the throne, saying, Amen, Alleluia. And a voice came out of the throne saying, Praise our God, all ye his servants, and ye that fear him, both great and small. Verse 9. It says, And he saith unto me, Right, blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. For he saith unto me, These are the true and faithful sayings of God. And then you see in verses 11 through 14, Jesus on the white horse coming back in verse 14 with the armies of heaven. So one of the last things that happens in heaven is the proclamation that those who are called to the marriage supper of the Lamb are blessed. Why? Because there are 2 groups of people that will be left at the second coming. Those who are spiritually prepared and those who are spiritually unprepared. Those who are called to the marriage supper of the Lamb will be those who will be granted access into the millennial kingdom, who will have been spiritually prepared at the time of his second coming. Which is what, when we get to the last part of this chapter, the judgment of the sheep and goats, is talking about. Then shall the kingdom of heaven, it's a parable, a story designed to teach a spiritual truth. What is the spiritual truth? That at the second coming of Jesus Christ, which is what the entire Olivet Discourse has been talking about, the events leading up to and including, and the last verses of chapter 24, all about 2 groups of people, prepared and unprepared. The kingdom of heaven, which is being brought from heaven to earth and established on earth for 1,000 years, be likened unto 10 virgins which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. Not their bridegroom, the bridegroom. They are not his bride. His bride is coming back with him, not on earth to meet him. That's what Revelation 19:14, the armies of heaven have followed after him. That includes us, because we're all returning with him and living on earth in his kingdom with him. So we're not on earth to be greeted by him at his return. We are with him at his return. To go into this event that this parable is talking about. So this is talking about people who will be on earth at the time of his physical return. They went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise, spiritually prepared, and 5 were foolish, spiritually unprepared. They that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. Oil is representative of the Holy Spirit. Again, goes to spiritual preparation. Some had enough oil, and some did not. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Again, it doesn't matter when he comes. If someone's faithful, they'll be prepared. If someone's not faithful, they won't be, and they'll be scrambling to get ready, but at that time it's too late. And that's what I was talking about earlier in the previous chapter. This parable is the perfect illustration of that. It didn't matter when he came. Those who had oil, those who were spiritually prepared, were ready for him and could just go out to meet him. Those who were spiritually unprepared to receive him didn't have enough time to get prepared, and they got left out. And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, Give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out. But the wise answered, saying, Not so, lest there not be enough for us and you. Well, you can't make someone else believe. Faith is an intangible thing. You can tell someone, but you can't take some of your faith and give it to them. They have to come to faith on their own. It's an individual decision. So they can't share it. There's nothing tangible to share. Not so, lest there not be enough for us and you, but go ye rather to them that sell and buy for yourselves. You also can't buy faith. You just have to believe. Again, it's not a tangible thing. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage supper, and the door was shut. Afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, Verily I say unto you, I know you not. Because the only ones that are known of the Father are the ones that know him. Jesus saith unto them, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. So if they're not prepared for the bridegroom, meaning they are not believers in Jesus Christ, then they are not known by God. Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, Verily I say unto you, I know you not. Watch therefore, for ye know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. Again, that goes back to visual understanding. Not like I can figure out the day count. It's a visual understanding of what the day is going to look like. The actual physical return of Jesus to earth. Visual perception. So then he goes into another parable here. Oh, Luke. I wanted to make that more clear, because when you go to Luke 12, it actually talking about the oil and the lamps. The parable of the virgins, it's pretty much what that parable was predicated on, was the oil and the lamps. When you go to Luke 12, it basically tells you exactly what that's about, and it's about the second coming and the marriage supper, not the actual marriage like the pre-trib rapture thing. There's no partial rapture, anything like that. It's got nothing to do with the church or the rapture. The parable of the virgins does not have anything to do with either. So Luke 12, um, 35. Let your loins be girded about, and your lights burning. And wait, and ye yourselves like unto men that wait for their Lord, when he will return from the wedding. Not going to the wedding, he's returning from it, from like the Jewish wedding ceremony. The bride and the bridegroom go to the father's house, spend 7 years there in the wedding chamber, and then they come out to partake with the guests of the marriage feast. That's what this is talking about. And ye yourselves like unto men that wait for the Lord, when he will return from the wedding 7 years later, that when he cometh and knocketh, like the parable of the virgins, they may open unto him immediately. Blessed are those servants whom the Lord, when he cometh, shall find watching. Verily I say unto you, that when he shall gird himself, and make them to sit down to meat, and will come forth and serve them. Marriage supper. And that's what the parable of the virgins is talking about. So for further clarification on who's intended and what time period is intended, go to Luke 12, 35 through 37. And that makes that so much clearer in case there's any issues. So then we go to Matthew 25, 14. This is the second parable about the kingdom of heaven. Master has been away for a long time. What does he come back when? What does he come back to? What have his servants been doing while he was away? For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them another 5. And likewise, he that had received 2, he also gained another 2. But he that had received 1 went and digged in the earth, and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh, and reckoneth with them. So he's back. He's going to find out what they did with what he entrusted to them while he was gone. So that he had received the 5 talents, came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. The joy of the Lord is also in other versions translated his master's happiness. It's a reference to the millennial kingdom, the rest of the Lord, which is, So that's obviously the second coming thing. He also that had received 2 talents came in and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents besides them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. So those who had been faithful with what he had entrusted to them and did what they were supposed to do with it, faithful, spiritually prepared, when he came back and reckoned with them and they had to give an account of what they had done, were granted entry into the millennial kingdom because they were faithful. Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee that thou art a hard man, casting aspersions on his master, making it his fault that he didn't do anything, that the servant didn't do anything because the master is a harsh guy. Reaping where thou hast not sown and gathering where thou hast not strawed, essentially accusing him of being a thief, of taking what's not his to take. Thief in the night, spiritually unprepared. There's your reference there. And I was afraid and went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast that is thine. So he was afraid and hid the talent. Not faithful. No faith. His Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gathered where I have not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money in the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have received mine own with usury. So he says, even if you didn't want to work to do stuff, you could have at least put it in the bank, and I could have at least earned interest on it. But you didn't even do that. Instead, you're trying to cover your own faults by trying to make it my fault. Not going to work. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it to him which had 10 talents. For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. So, basically, it goes back to the previous chapter, that those who do what they're supposed to with what he gives them will be given more to do, and those who don't do what they're supposed to be doing will have it taken away from them. A faith thing. The one parable, or the guy who had the 1 talent didn't do anything with it. He had no faith. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. That's the furnace of fire. Last verse of the previous chapter talked about that too, as did the parable of the tares from Matthew 13. The tares are thrown into the fire, where there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. So, obviously, that's not a good place to be. It's indicative of eternal separation from God, from Jesus Christ. So then we get to the rest of the chapters about the sheep and the goats, the judgment of the sheep and the goats. This is the judgment in the valley of decision, Joel 3. They're the same thing. The judgment of the nations and the judgment of the sheep and goats are the same thing, because the judgment of the sheep and goats is about treatment of his brethren Israel, which means it is not a Jewish judgment. All Israel shall be saved, and we'll get to that. As it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. All of Israel shall be saved, because they are, as a theocracy, will accept Jesus as their Messiah. And so all of them that are alive at that point will accept him and turn to him and believe in him and be saved. Thus there is no judgment seat for them. Do we get judged when we believe in Jesus Christ? We do not. The judgment seat of Christ, aka the Bema, is not a judgment seat. It's an award or loss of reward seat for what we did in faith, our works of faith. How much we had, we get awarded for that. So Israel will not have a judgment seat, because she will come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. And therefore there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, who walk not after the flesh but after the Spirit. So the judgment of the sheep and goats is not a judgment seat for believing Israel. It's a judgment seat for Gentiles based on their treatment of Israel. Based on the Abrahamic covenant, I will bless them that bless you and curse them that curse thee. That's where this all comes to its high point, its climax, with the judgment of the sheep and goats. But he will gather all nations into the valley of decision, and he will separate them, the sheep from on his right from the goats on his left. Did you do what I commanded you to do? When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations. All nations is a reference to Gentiles. And he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set his sheep on his right hand, and the goats on his left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and ye came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered, and fed thee, or thirsty, and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger, and took thee in, or naked, and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick, or in prison, and came unto thee? And the Lord shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, Israel, ye have done it unto me. Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me not in. Naked, and ye clothed me not. Sick and in prison, and ye visited me not. Then shall they also answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of the least of these, ye did it not to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. So Matthew 25 is a lot shorter to go through than Matthew 24. But hopefully that all made sense and stuff. One of the questions that I had gotten was about how all Israel shall be saved. It goes back to Zechariah 13 and talking about bringing a third through the fire, and will find them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They will call upon me, and I will hear them. They shall say that the Lord is my God. What does that say? I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Lord is my God. That while salvation is an individual thing, Israel is a theocracy. And it's kind of their government thing. And when they understand who Jesus is, they'll understand it on a national level. not just an individual level, based on the structure of how they are. They're a religious culture. So when their religion changes and the understanding is gained about who their Messiah is, all who are alive at that time will understand that based on the structure of their country, how they're set up. But it also goes to Romans 9. Paul, in that chapter, I don't have it in front of me. He says, not all Israel are of Israel, meaning that not all of the spiritual who are in Christ, in the root, partake of the spiritual promises through the Abrahamic covenant, through Jesus Christ, the promised seed. Not all of those people are from the natural descendants, and not all of them will be alive at the second coming. Again, there's a huge amount of Israel that will not survive. But my hope is that a lot of them will wind up being martyrs who may not flee and be part of the remnant, but that they'll come to faith and refuse to take the mark or worship the image or worship the beast, and that they will lay their life down, and that they'll get resurrected at the end of the week and still be able to go into the millennial kingdom. That's my hope. I don't really know how it'll all work out. But when we go to Joel 2:32, it says, it talks about them that shall come out of Zion the deliverer and shall turn away ungodliness. No, I'm quoting the wrong verse. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord hath said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. Calling is part of the justification process. When we go to Romans 8, Paul talks about this. And this specifically regards the church, and it leads to glorification, which eventually it will do for Israel also, but not before they go into eternity, because they'll still be in their natural bodies in the millennial kingdom. But in Romans 8, I like using that Bible, but it's hard to find things really fast. It says, moreover did he for whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called. So when you go to Joel 2:32, in the remnant whom the Lord shall call, John 6 talks about this, that all the Father has given him, he should lose none. And that all that he has called, all that he has drawn to him, he will save. That's what this is talking about, is the call goes out to those who will accept it, based on foreknowledge. Who will accept it, those are who are drawn. And so in the remnant whom the Lord shall call, it's part of the justification process. Those who did foreknow, he did predestinate. Those he predestinated, he called. And whom he called, them he also justified by faith. And that's why they will all be saved, because of how they are set up, how the society in Israel is set up. So yes, all those who are left at the second coming, not all Israel individually, because a lot of them won't make it, but all who are left at the second coming will come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. And the judgment seat of the sheep and goats is not for them, but rather for the Gentiles regarding their treatment of Israel. No problem. Happy harvest. Glad to help. Yes, enjoying the blessing of Messianic kingdom. Yes, entering into the joy of the Lord. Those who have been faithful, whatever that comes about, whether it's during the 70th week or before the 70th week, we all get to go. Or even the Old Testament, they'll be there too. So it's all based on faith. Do you guys have any other questions? You know, I've been here for a really long time, and sorry, I have a headache, so that's why some of my reading was kind of hard. But if you have any other questions after this, please let me know. I know we've been here for a while, and there's a lot to go through. And I know that some of what I said isn't going to jive with people, and they're not going to agree, and that's perfectly fine. You know, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but the Matthew 24 and 25, the Olivet Discourse, chapter 24 specifically is what leads up to the second coming and including the events of the second coming. And then chapter 25 basically talks about his second coming and what happens afterwards, as far as who's permitted into the kingdom, who's left out, and then the judgment that will take place at his return. So it's all part of the Olivet Discourse. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope that you all have a fantastic rest of your weekend. I don't know if I will be here tomorrow. I'll probably be here sometime tomorrow to finish out the last couple of chapters, the typology of the Jewish wedding ceremony as it regards the rapture. But yeah, if you have any other questions, please let me know. And hopefully I won't be here to do more videos, but if I am, I will. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. I am going to go get some food and some Tylenol. So thank you all. You're welcome. And I'll see you guys later. Take care. Happy Memorial Day.